Chad Simmons, joined by my partner Sam Spiegelman for Mouse of the South podcast. Our first one, Sam. Obviously, always a pleasure and fun, working with you. I remember, man, back early March, we were together in New Orleans. Next thing you know, we're on quarantine and things are locked down, and just got married, and it's been a crazy year. Here we are again this week dealing with you are personally, more hurricanes, and it's been a crazy, bizarre year, but I think we'll have fun with this for sure, and we know each other well, and we work off each other well. And let's just start off with, I guess, introducing ourselves. For me, I've been in this business industry for 16 or so years, man. 2004, I was 1 year into being married. I go to my wife about this kind of job. She's like, the internet, what? Is that going to even be substantial and stay around the recruiting industry? And here we are now 16 years later. I'm blessed to still be doing what I'm doing. So I'm over 4 states in the South. I'm based in Atlanta. So obviously I have Georgia, Alabama, now Tennessee, and Florida. I've had along the way the last 3.5, 4 years with the Rivals, back with Rivals, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and now Sam has those states, so along with his. But I'm a recruiting analyst over 4 states in the South, based in Atlanta. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to get Texas. That I negotiated Louisiana in. That's where I live in New Orleans. They threw in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and you were gracious enough to hand over Mississippi, which I'm still getting my feet wet in the
I missed it already, but you can have it.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in. You left a lot of talent for me to uncover, and I'm super excited about it. So I got 5 states now, from Texas to Mississippi. We go up to Oklahoma, Arkansas. We got the boot on lock for Rivals. This is my 2nd year as a regional analyst. I love it. I've been part of the Rivals network for 3 or 4 years now. I worked with Jimmy at the LSU site early on, and now the regional role. And I love working with you, Chad. I mean, the other guys that we've met along the way, Woody, Mike, Gordy. It's been a great stint at Rivals so far, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we're definitely happy to have you for sure, Sam. And this is my 2nd stint with the Rivals. So I was with the Rivals before in the mid 2000s, and then went to Scout for about 8.5, 9 years, and then came back to Rivals. So roughly, it's really been kind of a balance. I've been now total with Rivals for about 8.5 years, and then Scout with the other 8. So I haven't made it all the way around the entire circuit yet of our industry, with the other companies, but look, I'm blessed. I know you feel the same, to do what we do, and obviously get to call this a job. It is work. Don't be fooled by that. People want to say all the time we have the best job in the world, and I'm not going to argue with that. I wake up every day, actually wanting to go to work and do my job and do the best I can do for Rivals.com. But it still is a grind. It still is work, and we still work the phones, type a lot of stories, do a lot of miles on the road, and be away from our families at times. So let's get right into it, Sam. So, obviously this has been a crazy time. I think we both saw in our regions just a flux of commits during the quarantine time. And, so many kids this year have committed, blind, being able to not take visits, with them being banned through the end of 2020. But I know, looking through our, Rivals 250 and the top 4 or 5-star players in the country, I see a lot of guys in your region that are still uncommitted. I don't have very many. I think total in my 3 states, I believe in the Rivals 250, only 6 of my guys are uncommitted. And you're talking about states like Florida and Georgia that have a long list of players in that Rivals 250. So I guess let's start with that. I mean, give us a little bit of insight on maybe your top 4 or 5 guys that are uncommitted right now and kind of where they stand.
Yeah, I got a big 6 as of our taping Wednesday morning. We got a hurricane on the way to Louisiana, but probably the guy who's front and center is Sage Ryan, obviously number 3 safety in the country, number 1 DB in Louisiana. He's down to LSU and Alabama. I know Clemson is in it, but this feels like an SEC battle. His cousin is Kevin Falk, LSU's running backs coach. His uncle is Trevor Falk, who played at LSU. It's his head coach at Lafayette Christian. But Alabama is really in this, and been checking in around him, and I don't know if he even has his decision made. He's going to announce it on Halloween, so that is probably the biggest commitment on tap, maybe nationally, Chad. But Sage Ryan between LSU and Bama, as someone who's covered Louisiana in the past, you know that when an elite prospect is down to those two teams, when they're from Lafayette, they got connections to the hometown team, and then Nick Saban comes knocking, it's hard to say no sometimes. And you think about guys like Christian Harris or Dylan Moses or Chris Allen, and it's that LSU Alabama recruiting battle that when it happens in Louisiana, it's a lot of attention and a lot of pressure on the kids and the schools to come through with the elite safety. So as of Halloween, my pick's on LSU, but I'm hearing a lot of Bama talk as well as we get closer.
Yeah, I'll say that. I'll go back even farther to when I covered Louisiana for my former company, and that was five-star O-tackle Cam Robinson. Hootie up there, right there in that area. I mean, from the Vale, and those guys bolted from going from LSU to Alabama, and obviously Cam worked his way into a top draft pick at offensive tackle. It's been fun to kind of watch over the last decade or so, some battles between Alabama and LSU for top players in that state. And I'll go back to my top guy now that I feel that's at least on the verge of making a decision, at least has a date set that we know. Other guys could pop with, kind of unexpected. But Smile Munden, he's a top linebacker for me. Actually lives just about 25, 30 minutes from me. His high school in Dallas, Georgia, Paulding County High School. And they've never had a guy like him. It's not known as a football powerhouse. It's not a top high school program here in Georgia. Van Spence has done a great job getting over there the last few years, developing that program and pushing out a guy like Munden, who's now set the date on his grandmother's birthday to commit on November 18th. And he still has that so-called top five or final five. And, most that have followed his recruitment know that there's really not five schools in the mix. This was down to three. It's Auburn, Georgia, Tennessee, three SEC schools. He still lists schools like LSU and Florida, so five SEC programs. But it seems like this one for the last, I'd say, month and a half has been trending towards Auburn and Georgia. And, Tennessee definitely cannot be ruled out. But I think the last maybe 2 weeks, the more buzz has been around the in-state school, Georgia. That was kind of thought to be somewhat of a lock, maybe a year and a half ago. Georgia would get him, no problem. But that connection, what they call T-Will, Travis Williams at Auburn, who I think is one of the best recruiters in my region, just with connecting with players, has made this very interesting. And, of course, Brian Niedermeyer at Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt, his defensive background, the chance to play at Tennessee definitely made them an option too. But Georgia and Auburn seem to be fighting for this one with more buzz around Georgia as we close in on November 18th for Munden. Who you got next, Sam?
Next up is another guy that's right on that five-star status, like Sage, who's a top 50 player, and that's Billy Bowman, the number one athlete in the country on Rivals. Maybe not so surprisingly, backed off his Texas commitment. He had been committed since last summer. It seems like a lifetime ago that when Billy committed to Texas over Alabama and Florida, Texas was rolling. They got Jatavian Sanders, his teammate at Denton Ryan. They had Jalen Milroe from Katie Tompkins, and the Texas 2021 class was front and center. It was going to be very heavily influenced by the in-state talent with Billy, Jatavian, and Jalen at the front and center. Now Jalen is committed to Alabama, and Billy is set to choose between Oklahoma, LSU, and Georgia. He told me he's expecting to commit sometime early next month, November. Right now, it's looking like Oklahoma's race to lose. He's got family in Norman, which is an obvious connection. His girlfriend she's a freshman on the softball team, so you're going to look at that connection. But I do know that he had a conversation.
That's been the talk, man. Go follow the girlfriend.
Follow the girlfriend. I followed my wife to New Orleans. I haven't looked back in almost a decade, so I got no complaints. If that's what you want to do, follow suit. You might end up with a ring on your finger. It'll all work out. But I do know that Billy was on the phone with LSU yesterday. Defensive backs coach Corey Raymond, who's obviously one of the best in the business with DBs, and I know that Kirby Smart has been personally recruiting Bowman for Georgia. they're looking at him, obviously #1 athlete on Rivals, to play DB, also get some snaps on offense. That's something he's looking for as he reevaluates his fit. He plays a lot of slot receiver for Denton Ryan, is a big playmaker after the catch, take the top off of defense. My pick's on Oklahoma, but Billy keeps everything close to the vest. I think the fact that he's still talking to Georgia and LSU means his decision's not made up just yet. But one-time Texas commit, and now seems like he could either go to the rival in Oklahoma or the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about playing things close to the vest. I mean, Small Munden's that way, extremely close. I mean, he's kind of one of those guys you have to, kind of connect the dots like a big puzzle. You hear something here, you get this source here, and you put it all together. Try to figure out where he may be leaning, today, and that could all be different tomorrow, as you know, in the recruiting world, Sam. Another guy just like that for me in Georgia is Nyland Green, a 4-star cornerback. I saw him play recently. He can play corner. He can play free safety. He may plays at wide receiver. He's actually the long snapper for his team. He never leaves the field. He's a guy that plays everything for Newton High School in Covington, Georgia. And there's been a lot of buzz around his name that he may commit in the next week or two. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do interviews. He doesn't, he'll say the same thing about every school on his list. His favorite thing is, how can you not? When you ask him, what do you like why do you like Georgia? Why do you like Tennessee? How can you not? That's what he always, how can you not? How can you not like Jeremy Pruitt, Kirby Smart? So, I mean, he doesn't give you a lot to go on. So that's what, when it comes down to relationships and knowing people and having those sources and connections. But this one definitely seems like, a head-to-head battle, like a heated battle between Jeremy Pruitt and Kirby Smart. And the thing about Nyland Green is that I know he was very close to committing to 2 other schools in the spring at different times, spring, summer. One time it seemed like to Clemson, one time to Auburn. Those are both still being mentioned, but I don't see either school truly in play here late as we close in on a decision, likely in November at some point. Where he goes, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think he knows yet either. So I don't really think he's playing the game as some recruits play and try to lead, people, different directions or kind of throw them off per se. But I do think he is torn right now between Tennessee and Georgia. And I'll hit on 2 other guys real quick and throw it back to you, Sam. But Terrion Arnold, DB in Florida, and Amari Daniels, running back in Florida. 2 guys that everybody has their eyes on. Obviously, I just took over Florida, so I don't know as much yet about this 21 class. I likely won't. I'll know a lot more about 22, 23 moving forward. But I watched Terrion Arnold practice recently. I sat down with him in the school for a couple of hours and just got a chance to kind of watch him go about his business, talk to him about recruiting, personal life, all that kind of stuff. And I got the feel it's going to come down to 2 schools, Florida and Georgia. You can't rule out Alabama. A lot could depend on what your guy, Sage Ryan, does, too, at defensive back there, too, for them, Sam.
Sure.
They're putting together a great defensive back class. It's got, JaQuincy McKinstry, Kool-Aid, over the weekend, committed to Bama, another DB. So a lot could depend on what happens with Sage. They still have room for a guy like Terrion. But I think right now Florida and Georgia are positioned best for the long run. With Arnold, and then Amari Daniels, a running back from Miami Central, 4-star Rivals 250 guy, was supposed to commit last week. The day before, the schools in that area down in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area just started playing games again for the first time last weekend. His plan was to commit the day before his first game. He came out on that Thursday and said he will not be committing this week, but he's down to, as of right now, Georgia and Texas A&M. He's working with James Coley over at Texas, a former Georgia guy, now at A&M.
Right.
He's got connection to South Florida. He used to coach at Miami, at Florida State. He helped bring from that same school, Miami Central, James Cook to Georgia. So he has that connection with A&M. And then, of course, Georgia loves those South Florida guys, those athletes, speed guys that can make plays. So those are 2 of my guys. I'm also watching here moving through November and into December.
Yeah, I'll just do a couple of quick hitters. We'll start with the 5 stars. Everyone loves 5-star buzz. Tunmiche Adelaide, one-time Ohio State commitment down to Florida, Alabama, Texas A&M. He visited A&M earlier in October for the Alabama game. Maybe not the Alabama game, the Florida game, excuse me. He's going to head to Alabama and he's going to head to Florida in November. Unofficial visits, as you know, Chad, because the NCAA is still shut down. But, just to step foot on campus and look around, those are the final opportunities for Tunmiche to make up his mind. My pick's on A&M, but that's not on sourcing. That's on gut, offering him before he played it down of varsity football. I think he kind of goes with who believed in him from the start and the opportunity to play in the SEC close to home. Another future cast. I know you like these future cast picks, Chad. I put one in for Destin Hill out of Edna Carr yesterday for Florida. That's the first pick for the Gators.
Hang on. They put mine in right quick too, Sam, real fast for them, real fast. No, I'm just kidding.
What's interesting here is we're talking about a kid from New Orleans, but I think basically my logic here, I think he's going to either Florida or Florida State. He had been trending toward the Seminoles throughout the spring, but never pulled the trigger. Florida's having some really great early season success, obviously prior to this COVID outbreak. But the way the offense is going, obviously Dan Mullen has a history with offense at Florida. It's really attracted Hill this offseason. My picks on Florida, they've been pushing a lot harder lately for the New Orleans wide receiver. And then last is Mason Smith, the big man from the Bayou. Listen, he's down to 5, but kind of like what you said, there's 5 schools there. This is really feeling like Georgia versus LSU for the big man on the Bayou. I think what it comes down to is relationships, and I think that he has to figure this out over the next couple of weeks, but Trey Scott, Georgia's defensive line coach, might have the best relationship with Mason, and he's got a great relationship with the strength coaches at Georgia. They've made him feel like a priority, and the odds are against Georgia to go into Louisiana from the Bayou and take up Mason, but they're doing a fantastic job. And then you're battling against LSU, Coach O, Coach Locketer, former LSU player who's a GA for Coach O, and he's really bonded with Mason. So, while Miami really is in this, Alabama is never out of the race. Florida has some great history with Mason Smith, but this is really shaping up to be LSU, Georgia, prime time, and Georgia probably battling for the number 1 class in the country, and Mason might have a big role in this. He's going to make his decision during the early signing period.
Let me ask you this real quick, Sam. I mean, talking about LSU, obviously got off to a rough start against Mississippi State, them facing Mike Leach. And just obviously they had the magical 15-0 perfect season a year ago. I mean, everything went right. I mean, they made the right hires. I mean, Joe Burrow had a crazy, almost perfect season. LSU did have the perfect season. How much has maybe the changeover and even their play so far this season affected, the recruitment of guys like Mason or even a Sage Ryan? Do they have more questions about where does LSU go next? Are they going to be in a lull for a few years? I mean, what's the buzz around that program recruiting-wise right now?
Yeah, I think right now they're still kind of capitalizing off a national championship. When you win a ring, it kind of has an after effect for a couple of cycles, pretty recent. So right now, I know talking to guys like Garrett Nussmeier, Landon Jackson, JoJo Earl, a lot of those guys feel like they're still in that championship window. They're, a quarterback, a receiver, a DB away from getting back into the playoff, back into the SEC championship mix. They realize that when you lose Joe Brady, Joe Burrow, the number 1 overall pick, Christian Fulton, who's now playing for the Titans, guys that played critical roles on a national championship team. Pat Queen was a first-round pick playing for the Baltimore Ravens. You lost a lot of talent, a lot of key players that have been around for a long time in Baton Rouge playing key roles. They just see an opportunity to come on to campus and fill those roles and put LSU back in the mix. But, the defense is not playing up to snuff. When Dave Aranda left, that was a big gap. So I think, LSU has to answer a lot of those questions about its defense and finding new options there. But right now, there's still a lot of positivity around LSU, even if the record isn't exactly what we expected for 2020.
Yeah, no doubt. It just kind of just hit me just obviously with LSU. Maybe more unanswered questions about this team, where they're going. I mean, I will say I was impressed by your boy TJ Finley. I mean, he was throwing some darts last week. Now he looks like a future 6'7" defensive end, Ed Too Tall Jones from the Dallas Cowboys back in the day. But he was throwing some darts out there, man, and definitely I would say impressed. Me for sure in his first action. So let's shift gears a little bit, Sam, and go over to another topic. I mean, I know you and I, we take pride in, I think, how we cover recruiting and our time on the road and what we do in our states and how much we do get in-person evals and, building those relationships and stocking the database with photos, video, whatever it may be, information. So I know we've been to a lot of games. My season started where I'm at a little bit sooner than yours did, where you're at, but you've still seen plenty of games this year already. Let's just hit real quick, maybe two or three underclassmen. They could be 22, 23, even 24. Guys that maybe you've seen this year, whether it be a game, at practice, that have popped up and you feel could be potential top guys in their class. If you want to start.
Yeah. Let me throw out this name, RJ Maryland. This was kind of, you said we started a little bit late here in Texas and Louisiana. So my first action of the year was a scrimmage. This was supposed to be a week 1 game. They had to move it to a scrimmage. 5-star quarterback Quinn Ewers. He was committed to the University of Texas. The big offseason story had been Quinn, the number 1 quarterback on Rivals for 2022. But the bigger story was who he was throwing to during that scrimmage. RJ Maryland, he's now ranked as a 4-star on Rivals. It's his first, our first glimpse of him. 6'4", 215 pounds, kind of that hybrid flex tight end receiver, plug him, mismatch in the passing game, Chad. He's the son of Russell Maryland, who is a former Miami player, first round pick of the Dallas Cowboys. He obviously stayed in South Lake, and now we see his son taking up this team. He's been absolutely fantastic. He's got great hands. He's athletic. He makes plays after the catch. He makes contested catches, and he's just kind of getting his feet wet. So, after I saw him week 1, I think, after week 4, he had something like 8 catches for 100 yards. He's really kind of getting into his own. He's someone that's already going to be ranked high. He doesn't have a single offer yet. We imagine that's going to change at some point this year when coaches start getting the film, but he was probably the top underclassman that I had never heard of, and now is a pretty big grade on him.
Yeah, I'll hit on a couple quick guys real fast. Starting in 2022, I think tight end, it's a changed position, obviously. You still have a few out there that are more of the traditional, big, inline blocker type of guys that block down. And but the offenses have changed, and I think you're looking for the flex. I mean, talk about LSU a minute ago. I mean, Thaddeus Moss, a prime example of that, just a guy you flex out, a guy that can stretch the field, can get vertical. And I think a guy like Oscar Delp here in Georgia played his first game on a Wednesday night in early September, got his first offer the next day from Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. He's up now to around 20. I mean, he's recently added offers from Ohio State, Auburn, North Carolina, Florida State. In that first initial week of offers after Michigan, he was picking up, schools like Georgia, Tennessee, a long list of schools. So he's quickly emerged for me. I actually saw him right before the quarantine, and he had no offers, really no recruiting buzz, but I saw his sophomore tape. I put out a little video about him. Like, look, this is the kid you want to look at. This, not knowing at that time we're going to go into a quarantine and, have the coronavirus and all that. But I'm thinking, okay, maybe a few months from now, spring comes around, in-person evals, this kid, maybe doesn't blow up like he has now, but at least has 5-10 offers post-spring, post-summer, something like that. And here we are now. He's going to be a Rivals 250 guy. Go ahead and put it out there. I mean, he's a 5'6" RR right now. He will move up into the 250. And then Tony Mitchell, he's an Alabama DB, a one-time Tennessee commit. He's 2023. He's a guy that committed to Tennessee before he even started high school. And he's backed off that pledge since earlier this year. He was committed for almost a year. And he's just now, 2 months into his sophomore year. So that tells you how early he was getting offers. And it goes back to, I think, your state, Sam. I mean, Dylan Moses changed the game. He was one of the few that got the offers like that early, and since you've seen that picking up steam a lot more. He changed the game, in my opinion, in recruiting. and has lived up to all the hype that was around him. That'd be probably a first-round pick as well, more than likely. So Tony Mitchell, over 6 feet, a versatile DB, great athlete. Watched him practice, watched him play this season. The most buzz right now, of course, is around, Tennessee's still in there, but Alabama and Georgia. You hear a lot about Nick Saban. You hear a lot about Kirby Smart, where I'm at, around the South right here, and he's another guy. Then staying one more guy, Sam, in 2023, Levius Overton. He's out of Milton High School. He transferred over to Georgia, only a sophomore right now, from Alabama. He played private school ball in Alabama as a freshman last year, took his team to the state championship game, came over to Georgia during Christmas break. His father, who played offensive line in Oklahoma back in the day, is now the AD at Kennesaw State University here in Georgia. So that brought him, his family over in Milton. Is smiling. I mean, he's not going to put them back into the state championship run. He plays he has basketball offers and football. He's 6'4", 245, wow. 250, freak athlete. He'll be in that discussion for 5 stars, potentially in 2023, top 5 player in the country. He's that kind of talent. Already has all the offers, of course, 20-plus offers. Of course, Oklahoma, he's got the connection to. He has that offer, of course. Georgia, now the in-state team. He has the Alabamas, the Auburn, schools like that, too. So Oscar Delp in 2022, Tony Mitchell 2023, Levius Overton 2023. 3 underclassmen that have stood out to me so far this year.
Yeah, what else did you want to hit before we head out, Chad? What other topics?
I think we got to hit always is going to be our review and preview, so let's just real quick hit on who we saw, who'd you see play or might jump out at you in action last week, Sam?
So I was at the beach last weekend, Chad. So I was
you watched the Dolphins play.
Yeah,
in the water.
Exactly. We actually did see a Dolphin, but my last action, I was checking out the quarterbacks in the boot. I've been on a Louisiana run. So my last action is seeing Walker Howard. He's a Rivals 250 for 2022. We're playing with Jack Betch, who has obviously seen his recruitment just expedite over the last couple of days. And then before that, I was at the big Newman Booker T game in New Orleans, seeing 2023 quarterback Arch Manning. If the last name sounds familiar, you're barking up the right tree. All I'll say is, Louisiana, and Chad, this, is there hasn't been that many quarterbacks to really come out of this state. Now, all of a sudden, this 2022 class with Walker. Walker is, what an interesting story. This kid has been talked about and hyped up because his dad, Jamie, played at LSU. He's got all these records. I think he's got a couple of state championships in football and baseball. He obviously has a championship with LSU, I believe. But his son has just been waiting. You had Caleb Holstein, who's the son of Scott Holstein, who's a former LSU player as well at St. Thomas More. So Walker is just a junior, but he's getting his first action. He had offers from A&M, Alabama, Mississippi State, LSU before he started a game. So there was a lot of hype before he even played it down. And he has hit the ground running. I think he has something like 19 touchdowns and no interceptions or something. He's already thrown for over 1,000 yards. Watching him, he's got a live arm. He's super athletic, Chad. He makes plays with his arms and his legs, his anticipation, his arm strength, the chemistry he has with his receivers. And obviously Jack Betch has taken his game up. He's been an offseason storyline for me, just seeing him grow. I mean, we had a really weird offseason, yet every time I saw Jack, he came out faster, bigger, stronger. He committed to Vanderbilt in April, and over the last week, he's added offers from Texas, LSU, Mississippi State, and TCU. And TCU, Texas, Mississippi State, the LSU offer because of his uncle, because of his quarterback, because he's a Lafayette kid. It's something to watch. But I know he had a lot of interest in TCU and Mississippi State as well. And Texas is really coming on strong for Jack. So it'll be interesting to watch that. And then obviously Arch Manning, seeing him against Booker T, a really talented KIPP school here in New Orleans. Arch Manning was fantastic. It's fun to see a sophomore talk about going to his 3rd and 4th read, Chad. But they have a really talented squad at Newman. It was great to see A.J. Johnson, who is a Rivals 250 receiver that hasn't played football in 2 years because of COVID and transfer rules in the LHSAA. Arch Manning, use all of his weapons. You see all of a sudden this Newman team has more college talent than I've ever seen before. And you have a Manning orchestrating the offense, and it's really fun to watch him. He's very poised, very calculated, kind of surgical as he leads his offense, and it's going to be fun to watch him over the next 3 years.
Yeah, for me last week, I was in games in Alabama on Thursday and then Georgia on Friday. And I think moving forward with these podcasts, Sam, maybe we'll start off with this every show, just kind of hit who we saw last week and then kind of where we're going this week and just kind of build it off of that moving forward. But Thursday last week, I saw Alabama commit Tim Keenan, defensive lineman, 4-star player for us on Rivals.com. Then 4-star his teammate, linebacker, more of that edge guy, defensive end, outside backer, Jeremiah Williams, who just committed to Florida over Auburn earlier this week. And then they were going against Pleasant Grove, who has Christian Lewis, I think a guy on the rise, committed to Kentucky, a big, tall, 6'4", wide receiver. And all those guys made plays in this game. Lewis had a touchdown catch. He had a big kickoff return to set up another score in this game. Tim Keenan made a huge play late on 3rd and short to stop a drive. This game went back and forth, and Ramsey, which is Keenan and Williams' team, was number 1 in the state against Pleasant Grove, number 3 in the state. It was a huge game at UAB's home field in Birmingham, and Jeremiah Williams had a huge hit on special teams. So all those guys lived up and played to their ranking, maybe even above for a guy like Christian Lewis, a high 3-star for us right now on Rivals.com. And then on Friday, I went over and saw in Norcross, Georgia, Cedar Grove going for their 3rd straight state championship in Georgia. I can show you my phone, just like the list of names that I have to look at to make sure I see every player on their team that has an offer. I mean, they've got, 10, 15, 18 guys that have D1 offers. Wow. And half of them, I'd say 80% are all underclassmen, 22 and 23. So if you don't get them this year, and they're undefeated, of course, if you don't get them this year and knock them off, you're going to have a hard time beating Cedar Grove the next couple, all those guys coming back. But, again, all those guys, Rashad Dubanian, a 2022 4-star all-purpose back for us. He had 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. You had on the other side, Greater Atlanta Christian, a Rivals 100 guy, 2022. Addison Nichols, a big Tennessee fan there. So I saw a lot of guys, and I'll stay on looking ahead to this week, previewing where I'm going to be at and sticking with offensive tackle. I'll be on Thursday watching the number 1 player in Georgia, number 2 player in the country, Amarius Mims, play on Thursday night, weather permitting. We think the rain will be out of here by then and stuff like that where we're at. But he plays Thursday. I'll see him really playing in a game for the first time. I've seen him practice many times. I've seen him in numerous camps, settings, and he's always performed at a high level. So watching him play will be big. And then I'll see on the Friday night, I'll see the number 3 player in the state, right behind him, Barrett Carter, the Clemson commit. Is he a 5-star? Will he stay? He's a 6.0. So he's on the verge of that 6.1 5-star ranking. And then and that's Jordan Hancock, his teammate who flipped from Clemson to Ohio State. He just opted back in. He set out. His mom had just finished beating cancer over the summer. He decided to sit out with the coronavirus early. Came back a couple of weeks ago, opted back in. So he'll be his, I think, 2nd or 3rd game this season with Jordan Hancock. So then you got, of course, the young guys too, man. On their team, North Gwinnett, 2023, Caden McDonald, a big-time D tackle already offered by Georgia here recently. And on the other side, you have Collins Hill, who has Travis Hunter, Florida State commit in 2022, a top 20 player in the country for us on Rivals. And then Sam Horn, a 4-star quarterback, Rivals 250 guy, also in that 22 class. So a lot of talent on the field on Friday night for me. What about you, Sam? You back away from the beach this week?
Yeah, I'm back. And like you said, we are hopeful that the weather will pass us and we'll be able to get out to games. But assuming, weather permitting, I'm excited. I'm going to go up around Baton Rouge, see a little Dutchtown, East Ascension. Man, I haven't been to Dutchtown in maybe like 4, 5, 6 years. I think the last time I was there, I saw Donovan Isom play, Chad, for a throwback name.
Is it like Geyser or Gazer? Where's that at, Dutchtown?
Yeah, exactly, Geismer.
I've been there a few times.
Exactly. It's a great drive from New Orleans.
I took a ferry there one time. I got on a ferry on my car and went across the river.
Did you?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I did not expense
Well,
that either, Scout, back in the day, scout.com. I did not expense that. I paid
of
for
course, of course. He's ethically sound. No, I'm excited. Dutchtown has this playmaking running back, Dylan Sampson, who I'm so excited to see for the first time. Like kind of what you were saying before. You could see someone in a camp or a workout or something, but seeing them with pads on under the lights is a different experience. Mississippi State recently offered Dylan, but he's going to go against one of the best defenses in the state, one of the best run programs in the state, in East Ascension. Coach Lee over there is in the business. He's got a really talented SEC defensive lineman who I'm going to see for the first time. I saw East Ascension play Warren Easton last year, but I'm pretty sure Jarrell Boykins was injured for that game. And like a lot of those like some of the programs you mentioned, East Ascension is loaded with a lot of young underclassmen, a lot of Kansas offers on this squad for 2022, 2023 guys. And then Friday night, I'm going to go down to the Swamp, see the number one athlete in the country for 2022, Jacoby Matthews. Obviously, he took over for TJ Finley, who we talked about a little bit earlier. We're going to see TJ's little brother, Cody, is one of the receivers for Ponchatoula. On the other side, Amarion Walker, who is a speedy, vertical threat for Ponchatoula. And they're going to take on Slidell in some district games. And I'm excited to get back to work. The beach is fun, Chad. I'm not really a beach person, but I'm excited. I'm more of a Friday night lights person. So I'm excited to get back on the road and see some talent.
I'm a beach person, but again, I'm like 50 years older than you, already ready to retire. I sit back on the beach in the condo with my wife and have gray hair and sip on some Publix water bottles or something like that, and sweat a little bit.
I can mess with Publix.
They have that good purified waters, of course, at Publix. Shout out if you want to sponsor us on our podcast, Publix. But
throw some pub subs our way.
Well, obviously fun, Sam. Obviously, it's wrapping up kind of our first, podcast, first of many for us. And we can't close out, man. There's a couple of big, important dates coming up for us. I'm not sure which one's more important, the election day next Tuesday or Halloween on Saturday. I'm not sure. If you ask people maybe 15 and under, it's probably Halloween, maybe 20 and over, maybe 30 and over, maybe election day. But let's hit on both of those real quick. So let's start just with the election. Obviously, will Trump come back for a second term? Will Biden come in and be a 79-year-old president next year? I don't know if is it win-win, lose-lose? I don't know really what's going to happen. I'm not a big politics guy. It's fun I do watch the debates and I listen to what they have to say, but how much of that stuff actually happens or occurs in their term that they say? Not always a lot, depending on who's been the president in the past. But let's take it a little bit with what we do in the college football world, Sam. So you're kind of known as our Big 12 guy. I'm now like the SEC guy for the areas that we cover. So if you had to take a coach or a coach or two out of the Big 12, who you think would make a decent president in the real world, who would you nominate from the Big 12?
Okay, so you have my real answer, and then you have like my dream answer. So the real answer, I think, is Gary Patterson, right? He's been an institution at TCU. I mean, this guy found a way to sign 5-star Zach Evans when no one was looking last year. He flipped Quentin Johnston away from Texas at the last minute. This guy is a proven recruiter. He's a proven winner. He's actually a defensive coach. He got one of my favorite players of all time, Ardarius Washington, from Evangel Christian a couple of years ago. And now I think he had 26 high school interceptions, Chad. I'm pretty sure he's close to doing the same thing over in Fort Worth. So Gary Patterson is the answer in terms of logistics. But who would be the most fun president? Come on, you got to get the eyes going. Lincoln Riley. In my region, I don't know if there's a kid who has not raved about Lincoln Riley to me on multiple occasions. Even when kids are not, considering Oklahoma, they have high things to say about Lincoln Riley and his staff, the way he runs his program, the way he recruits, the way he cares about kids and their family and his players. He might be the best recruiter in college football. He's definitely one of the best young head coaches without question. And he brings that young energy. We're talking about Joe Biden, 79, and Trump, who's up there in age. Let's get a young guy in there, bring some energy to the Oval Office, Chad.
I was just talking to my wife about that last night, man. Where's all the young candidates at? Maybe you should run next year, Sam. Get into politics, man. Do something different. Show them how to work that gel and stuff in the White House, man, for the hair and everything, man.
I could do a tutorial.
I think Lincoln Riley could bring Jumpman and the Jordans to the White House. He'd make it cool to show up for a speech in the suit and the Jordans. You know, for me in the SEC, I think you think about a president, you think about the leader of your country. Has anybody led a college program like Nick Saban? That's the no-brainer. The structure he has in his program, the people that he surrounds himself, which I think is very important, in a presidential role, who they're, the defense and just, whatever they have going on, the people, it's like a coach to me, a head coach. It's all about the people around you and under you that make you, I think, what you are. And that's your job, is to hire the right people to put the plan in place and hire the right folks to execute that plan. And to me, the easy one, of course, I think everybody, and Saban could jump in the race tomorrow and actually make it interesting on Tuesday.
He definitely get votes in the South.
I mean, he would definitely get a lot of votes in the South. They'd probably vote, if they could vote him to the opposing teams to make him leave Alabama, he might get the votes across the country. Ohio State fans, Clemson fans, Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn,
Indiana, California.
Get him out of college football. He's like been the dynasty. But obviously the interesting one for me would obviously be Mike Leach. Now he might be the president for me of the Caribbean, the Pirates and that kind of guy. But you talk about an entertaining president. You talk about Trump doing some crazy stuff on social media, tweeting out, calling out Fox News or CNN, whatever he does all the time. You talk about what Leach might do if he ever sat in that chair. Doing what he does. And then maybe for his vice president, hire Lane Kiffin. You have Lane Kiffin as VP. He'll bring in the entertainment. He'll have the cutest females on his side all the time, walking with him as entourage. Then you got Mike Leach leading the country. He might have an eye patch, maybe a sword right here.
Maybe a parrot?
Maybe a parrot. That'd be awesome. Maybe a parrot too. But obviously that would be fun to, I don't know if it'd be great for our country, but it'd be very entertaining.
It'd be entertaining. It probably wouldn't be great, but a lot of offense though.
I don't know who I'd vote for there with Mike Leach versus Lincoln Riley, but it'd be a very interesting debate. Watch the debates, and then also a race. But let's close out with this real quick, Sam, about Halloween. Two things. Looking back to your childhood, what was maybe the costume you remember that you loved being? And you ain't got to remember exactly what age you were, and then also the best candy that you still love today that you love getting, and the worst Halloween candy. So finish with that.
The best candy, Twix bars, because there's two of them. I mean, why settle for one candy bar when you can get two? Even in the minis, that you get two of them. The worst, I don't like sour. I don't know. I don't those like the candy and the plastic wrapper. I don't like that stuff. I like chocolate. I'm a chocolate guy. Best costume, man. I wore a lot of jerseys as a kid. This weekend, I'm gonna dress up as John Gruden because the Raiders are doing well. He's a fun accent to do, and I got a nice little Raiders visor to put over here. What about you, Chad? What's your candy preference and what's your favorite costumes?
Well, my costume was definitely, man, I'm a sports guy, but I'm a big, huge baseball guy. That was my passion growing up. And my favorite player really of all time, especially my childhood, was Dale Murphy here in Atlanta. And I had a Dale Murphy Braves, old tight white pants, the old skinny legging stirrups, and his number 3 jersey. And I didn't just wear that for Halloween when I was like 8 or 9. I wore that to school. I wore it all the time. I'd be in my backyard mimicking a stance, out there. He wore 1 batting glove, not 2. He struck out all the time, but he made great plays. He won back-to-back MVPs in like 82, 83 on terrible teams. And that just told you to me why he should be in the Hall of Fame. Just making my case one more time. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose should too as well, in my opinion. I'm a big baseball guy. But with that said, on the candy side, for me, is always those little bitty yellow boxes of Milk Duds, man. I love Milk Duds. And those little yellow boxes. And I always used to get mad when it used to be, most of the time they'd come with 3 in there. Every night you get lucky and get 4 Milk Duds in there every now and then. I'd be so excited. So still my kids today, they will come home and they know when they pour that stuff out, when they find those Milk Duds, they say, okay, here you go, Dad. They don't even ask. They just give them right to me. That's my favorite.
That's
Probably
a good system.
the worst candy has to be for me candy corn. I don't even understand it. I don't know why it's called a candy. It's not candy. It's not corn. It's not candy corn. It doesn't taste good. It's awful.
It's not even like
I just
real
like that.
substances. There's no ingredients in there.
Yeah, I don't get it. Too much. I'll go out like this. The first mouth of the South right here. It's my son's mask right here. Going from Money Heist on Netflix.
Nice.
Everybody have a great weekend. Great election week next week. Happy Halloween. For Sam Spiegelman, I'm Chad Simmons for the first episode of Mouse of the South. Have a great weekend.